All right, February 2023. It's early offseason. It feels like the middle of the offseason because A&M football ended a little earlier than we had hoped this year. We just went 5-7. Jimbo Fisher's on the hot seat, according to many, and everything's bad. Is it too early for me to overhype our chances in 2023? Because I feel like doing that. With the recent announcement of Ainias Smith, amongst other things, I'm feeling good. I feel really, really positive. I'm optimistic. I feel too good for coming off of a 5-7 and a lackluster ending to 2021, despite the high highs we had in 2021. I'm talking about beating Alabama. So I feel mysteriously good, uncomfortably good, and damn it, I want to talk about it. How are y'all doing, Aggies? It's been a while since I've talked to you guys. Sorry I missed. Got a little sick. I traveled, came back sick, voice went away, but we're back. Lots of things have happened. As I just touched on, Ainias Smith is returning. You all know about it by now. I'm not here to update you on that, but we will talk about what the results of that will be. So lots of stuff going on. We're going to take a look at a depth chart, a projected depth chart that comes from Chance Bitters. If you don't follow Chance on Twitter, great Aggie Twitter account, and he puts out this updated as needed depth chart that he built on just a spreadsheet, and it's a really nice visual aid. We're going to go ahead and take a look at that today and just kind of break down where things stand before spring, before summer workouts, because things are going to start moving around quite a bit. But after taking a glance at this thing, I think a lot of this stuff is probably set in stone. But then again, there are some spots that are question marks. So as good as this thing looks and as good as the two deep rotation looks in many places, there are some answers we're going to need, hopefully pretty quickly. But before I do all that, I want to tell you a story. I spent this last weekend in Aggieland. Me, my girlfriend, my dogs, we all trotted down to Aggieland. We all trotted, it's technically northeast. We trotted northeast to Aggieland, and we spent a good February weekend there. And let me tell you, it was very lovely. It was very nice to be in College Station in the middle of February, on a Saturday nonetheless. I went to College Station on a Saturday to watch the Aggies kick the Bulldogs' ass. I don't get to say that, ever, but I'm saying it because it just happened. Going back to Aggieland is always a trip. I'm from South Texas, so going to College Station is not just a walk in the park. It's a good 3-hour drive. I'm not from Houston or the greater College Station Bryan area to where it's just a simple drive to go, and you can go whenever you're feeling nostalgic or you just want to go there and eat the restaurants, be on campus, see the sights, go to the bookstore, do all that. I would love to do all that if I were closer, but no, going to College Station is quite the event for me. Like I said, 3-hour drive. So it's really cool to go back when I have the opportunity to do so in February to watch a great basketball game. As I do, I had to do my pregame tradition that I do for football games, and that's getting a pregame margarita. That's set in stone given I'm usually going to do that if I'm going to a football game. I'm not getting drunk. I'm having a margarita because I get tense during these games, as I'm sure many of you do, and I'm not advocating for drinking to alleviate any kind of situation or any kind of stressor you may be feeling. But there's something about that margarita before a football game vibe that just sits right with me. So I did the same thing for the basketball game because, hey, Saturday night game in College Station, why not have the vibe match the situation? I'm a Los Cucos guy. You're probably a Chimmy's guy, maybe an On the Border guy, somewhere closer to campus. I'm a Los Cucos guy. Their margaritas speak to me for whatever reason. Anyway, margarita, maybe a beer, go to the game. Being on campus is such a joy. It's so nice, especially when the hustle and bustle of the game day weekend isn't there. You can actually slow down, take your time to reminisce, look around. College Station's a great time, and we kick some butt. And before I talk about the game, I must disclose that I am not a hardcore Aggie basketball guy. I'm a casual fan. I will admit that wholeheartedly. I love basketball. I play basketball pretty much every week, but I don't follow A&M basketball super religiously. I know the players. I probably watched a third of the games this year, Much more recently, though, because they've kind of been on a tear through the SEC. But they looked really good and absolutely took care of business Saturday night. They have a nice rotation of 7 or 8 guys that are super serviceable. I love the bigs, Marble and Coleman. I specifically love Coleman. Feel like Coleman's a beast on the boards, has really sticky, good hands for a big man that are a great utility in rebounding and just getting hands on balls. Marble's really good too. And then the guards, Radford and Taylor the fourth. Is Taylor the fourth? Wade Taylor, is that his name? They're good. And everybody plays great defense. Dexter Dennis is like a wild card out there. You never know if he's going to shoot, dunk it on your face, get a huge block. Great athlete, great player. It's a fun 5. It's a fun starting 5 unit. I really like the Garcia kid off the bench. This dude does not fill it up on the stat sheet, but he just hustles, and it seems like he's a winner. You put him out there, and good things happen. A lot of fun watching this team. They're making a fan out of me. I'm paying attention more than I have pretty much, definitely for the season. And I'm excited. I love Buzz Williams. I feel like Buzz Williams is a role model, not only for his team, but for young men and women, for anybody watching. If you watch his post-game interviews or the way he talks to the team, it's always bigger than basketball. There's bigger lessons. There's bigger things to learn than the X's and O's or the strategies of the game. Love Buzz. You hope he is successful in the long term as an Aggie, and things are looking great right now. Looking forward to watching more. They're kind of must-watch TV for Aggies right now. So tune into the game. Tune into the games, I mean. Now what you're here for is Aggie football, because I talk Aggie football. We'll touch on other things Aggieland whenever we feel the need to do so. But now, the depth chart. So like I said, Chance Bitters, if you don't follow him, go follow him. He updates this thing. It moves around a lot. It was dancing around a lot through the transfer portal period window, especially in the early weeks when people's names were popping in and out of that thing like crazy. But this is how it stands in February. So I had touched on Ainias Smith. And the interesting thing about Ainias coming back is that we have not seen him play next to Moose Muhammad really at all in either of their careers. And as soon as Ainias went out, Moose became a dude. And Moose was an absolute breakout player for this offense last year, even though the offense wasn't as good as we had hoped in any of our most conservative predictions. The offense was bad, but even in a bad offense, Moose Muhammad stood out. And he's a guy that has to play. So as you see on this depth chart right here, you got Moose and Ainias starting. And I think that's up for debate. Those are 2 smaller guys. But I think that's a very, very viable, and of course Evan Stewart is starting. That's a very viable 3 right there. I don't care about the size so much. When you have that kind of talent, playmaking ability, Moose's ability to make plays in traffic despite being a smaller guy, I think you get a lot of what you would want from a slightly bigger guy in Moose. And of course, Ainias is, go gadget, do whatever you want him to do. Put him in the slot. I have a feeling this year we may see Ainias more in the backfield than we have the last few years while A-Chain and Spiller were around, because moving down to the running backs, there's no clear number 1 coming into the year, and it hasn't been that way for quite a while in the Jimbo era. Of course, Bobby Petrino is in the house now, so we don't know how that might affect decisions like that. But I would be very surprised if this is not the year you see this offense lean on Ainias Smith the most since he's been at A&M. We've seen what Ainias Smith can be here and there. And he's done it a lot. He's done a lot of good at A&M. But I'm going to say something about Ainias that I said about Damani. And what I said about Damani when he was declared to be coming back was that he's improved every year. But I feel, and I think most of us feel, that there is still a leap left for Damani to make. I feel the same way about Ainias, and it's not an exact comparison because Ainias was robbed of his senior year. Damani's had 4 full years, relatively healthy. So we don't know what Ainias could have been this year. But I feel as though Ainias Smith definitely still has the leap in the chamber. And, talk about a dark horse Heisman candidate, just a name to throw out there, not one you would go put, a ton of money on, but hey, go put a few dollars on him and get a pretty good payout on that. Ainias, he's a playmaker. If they get the ball in his hands enough, things are going to happen. And of course, you worry about that leg. You hope he stays healthy. And part of his announcement video was to show a lot of his footwork drills. If you see his announcement video that he was returning on Twitter and other social media platforms, I think, he just showed a lot of agility drill, a lot of footwork movement. And I think that was pretty calculated to show I'm healthy. NFL scouts, I'm healthy now. I'm going to be training from now up until it is draft time. So just be aware that I've been healthy for a long-ass time. He looks healthy, and he looks like he's going to hit this offseason and next season running. So super exciting trio of receivers right there. I would not be upset at all if that is your starting trio. Evan Stewart as a true freshman, just becoming a heartbeat of the offense last year, really. The most reliable, consistent receiver from start to finish of the year, because Ainias, he got hurt 4 games in, and then Moose didn't really show up until 5 games in, which is a whole, discussion in itself. Where was Moose at the beginning of the year? Anyway, you get that Evan Stewart back. Those 2 guys we've already touched on. That's a damn good trio. And then, of course, you have Noah Thomas waiting in the wings, showing great moments later in the year last year as kind of an interior Y/big receiver kind of guy. Can block a little bit, big body. We all know he has great movement for his size. It's going to be exciting to see him. And, of course, you have a couple of true freshmen coming in. We'll see who makes a name for themselves there. A lot of stuff to be excited about. And not on this list for whatever reason, and he hasn't transferred, has he, is Jalen Preston. Jalen Preston's still there, will probably be a plug-and-play guy, part of your rotation, great experience, great leader. I will cut this out if Jalen Preston transferred, and I didn't hear about it. I'm cutting this out, too, talking about that. And then, of course, the other wide receiver, the tight end, Donovan Green, the good Aggie. He's back. Great guy. Had a great freshman year. You can only imagine he's going to improve a lot going into his sophomore year. I have big expectations from Donovan. Yeah, he's going to keep rocking and rolling. But where I'm really excited about is Jake Johnson, Theo Orstrom, Luca Garza. Is it Luca or Luke Garza? I think it's Luca Garza. Jaden Platt, probably a little bit behind the other guys because he's so young. But this tight end room is insane. I mean, absolute upside. You see what Georgia did this year, having like a 3 tight end system where anybody can make a play, and then one of them is clearly the best. I think A&M could have that this coming year. It just depends on who pans out, whose development went right, who's in the right headspace. But I think that is that's on the upper spectrum of the range of possibilities there. You could have 3 really good tight ends, but we know at the very least we're going to have one damn good one in Donovan Green. All these receivers, right? The running back's kind of a question mark. You got Amari Daniels, Le'Veon Moss. You got Crownover, who I think is going to play a little bit more fullback because he showed some success at fullback in a blocking, or just as a blocking back at least, versus LSU. And, of course, Ruben Owens, who, I have acknowledged could just run away with this thing if he wants to or if he can. He's an extreme talent coming in as a true freshman. So we don't really know what happens at running back. Is it going to be a 1-man system, 2-man system, 3-man? Are they going to open it up finally? I don't know. But what I do know is we really have a quarterback in Connor Wigman, and a quarterback that's developed some chemistry with some of these guys already. And the receiver you're adding to the mix who might disrupt that chemistry is Ainias Smith, a 5th-year senior who could probably pick anything up really quickly, especially compared to typical college athletes. He's a 5th-year guy. So I think him and Wegman will build rapport pretty quickly. But aside from that, him and Moose and Evan, they've been playing. And this O-line, a lot of these guys have been playing with these guys too. Now, last year, the O-line, we know what the issue was. It was a revolving door at every position pretty much. No stability, no continuity, minimal chemistry. Until very late in the year, they finally had their best game of the year versus LSU. And I think that was because they had the same group for a couple games in a row, which is something they couldn't manage to do the full year before that, or the full part of the season before the last stretch of the year. So I think the key will be, what is the health of the O-line? Are they going to be able to stay together and play together for a significant stretch of time this year? Hopefully the whole year. You can't expect any position group to go untouched in college football. So just like a reasonable year in terms of injuries would be nice at the offensive line. I think the center to the right side of the line is pretty locked in. I mean, Bryce Foster, Layden Robinson, Ruben Fothery, those are 3 All-American level players if they can do it, if they can manage to stay healthy and gain chemistry and play together the whole year. We know what those 3 can be. The left side is a little bit more in flux. Flux is a loose term. There's probably clear favorites on the left side, but I would suggest that if there was movement, no pun intended, but if there was movement within the position of the offensive line, it would come on the left side. Cam Dewberry had a really strong ending to the year, played a lot of meaningful ball, and played really well for just being thrown into the mix in the middle of the year. Trey Zune improved over the course of the year, but you do have some monsters that come in. Shanahan, Nikhil Bertrand, Colton Thomason, a lot of the guys that have been here for a while. Jordan Moko was looking really good before he went down with injury. Aggie, the coaches have been wanting to plug this guy in since he got here, physical specimen. He's there too. He's still there. He's still a thing. And a bunch of other guys, Chase Basantis. You have Wyckoff played a lot last year. And then we haven't even seen Remington Strickland really. There's just a lot of options at offensive line. While I think you have a pretty favorable starting 5 in regards to them having the position locked up, I would say maybe the left side has a little bit of play in them. If someone just emerges and is just like, you can't not play them. But overall, how can you not be so excited about this offense? Because not only do you have all this, you have a new offensive coordinator and someone who has done it at the highest level in Bobby Petrino. And this will be his best offense, personnel and talent-wise, he's ever had. So, I mean, things could not work out. Oh, and also on this offensive line, year 2 under Adazio, maybe some chemistry things are getting better on that front as well, learning his language, learning his style, learning his expectations, gaining confidence in that system. So I think there's a lot to be excited about on this offense, and I'm sorry if I'm hyping it up too much, but I'm really excited about this freaking offense, guys. Running back is one of those situations where, yeah, we don't know who it is, but I think there's a really, really good chance that something's going to stick coming out of that room. So get excited about this offense, guys. Let's move to defense here. And since we're coming off the offense strong, let's stay strong on defense and talk about its strongest attribute, which is its defensive line. Because that 2021 class, they're all a year into college football now. They're all a year into the weight room. They mostly have game experience. There's a couple that don't, but one of those guys might have been the best one there. I'm talking about Brownlow Dindy, who we haven't seen yet. But this starting 4 is insane because of who's not in the starting 4. So you have Shamar Stewart, Walter Nolan, McKinley Jackson, and Fadil Diggs. 2 of those guys were freshmen last year, played a ton throughout the year. McKinley Jackson and Diggs didn't stay on the field the whole year, but they were huge difference makers, probably the biggest difference makers out there for this defensive line. Hopefully they start the year healthy. That starting 4 is ridiculous. But the fact that Shamar Turner, LT Overton are in the second unit there, that's insanity. I mean, that's mind-blowing insanity right there. And then, of course, you have Brownlow Dindy, Eni White. Eni White played a lot last year, going to be a strong edge guy. So is Malik Silla. He played a lot late in the year because pass rush wasn't the strongest aspect of this defense last year. A lot of the edge guys you were playing were super young, especially once Fadil Diggs went out, who was your best pass rusher. So a lot of things to be excited about with this defensive line. Oh, and for as much as I have mentioned here, you still have David Hicks and Brownlow Dindy, who I've touched on. But those guys, what are these? What are we getting in these guys? Oh my goodness, this defensive line is going to be insane. So as excited about the offense as I am, I think that same level of excitement transfers over this defensive line. And for the safeties as well, because you have Damani back, which is huge. Jordan Gilbert, who's a grizzled vet now, he's played 2 years, 1 full year as the full-time starter. But there was such a great rotation amongst this nickel safety combo group of players that we saw under DJ Durkin. Jacoby Matthews, Jared Kerr, they played a lot last year. And I don't have to tell you about Bryce Anderson. He made plays all year long. He was constantly in the tweets or the headlines of the Texas A&M fan base and media. He had big game after big game. And then your lockdown corner. Now we're moving away from the safety and nickel here. A little bit more question marks at this position here. More so than almost any other position on the team besides maybe linebacker, which we'll get to in a second. It's complicated. Let's break it down. Tyreek Chappelle, I think it's his money-making year, guys. He's going to be the go-to lockdown corner. He's going to be CB1, leader of this corner group going into camp. This is his 3rd year as the starter. I believe it's his 3rd year as a starter. Definitely his 3rd year in the rotation. Yes, it is his 3rd year. Because I think back to 2 years ago versus Arkansas when he was playing for the injured Miles Jones and they were isolating Treylon Burke on him over and over again. And, of course, Burks had a lot of success. Tyreek was a young player starting due to injury or playing due to injury. I remember him getting it handed to him quite a bit. But as time and his experience has occurred, Tyreek Chappelle has grown into a stud, but he's one of those guys I think has a leap in him, like I mentioned about Ainias, like I mentioned about Damani. I think Chappelle has steadily improved, and I think this, like I said, money-making year, make a name for yourself. You're the featured cornerback going into the season, going into spring of this defense. So he has a huge opportunity to go out there and be an absolute stud. Now, this depth chart has Tony Grimes. Let's double-check names here. I forget first names. It's okay. These are newer players. Yeah, Tony Grimes. I got that right. And Sam McCall. Now, Tony Grimes, definitely a cornerback, definitely a candidate to be a starter, had a pretty good career at North Carolina, probably still has room in the tank to improve as an Aggie. And then Sam McCall. The great thing about Sam McCall that's apparent if you do any kind of research on him is that he can play multiple positions. So having him as a backup corner, being able to slot in where needed, maybe play both corner spots, that's very cool to have. Because here's the thing. You also have Deuce Harmon and then Bobby Taylor, the wild card. We all want Bobby Taylor to be really good. We love Bobby. Bobby's the man. Maybe he emerges. But aside from Tyreek, you don't have a clear second cornerback, in my opinion. Who's going to step up? Who's going to be that guy? Is it going to be a safety or a nickel moving out to corner? Is it going to be one of these names I just mentioned? Is it going to be a true freshman? You got Bravion Rogers. Let's double-check first names. We're not going to get names wrong right away. Javen Thomas, Dalton Brooks. Okay, yeah, I'll get these names right eventually. One of them might emerge. As I said about them in my class breakdown, none of those guys are like clear day one starters on paper coming out of high school on film. But one of them could become a rotational player early because these are all highly touted guys. These are all really good guys. They're not clear-cut early starters, but someone could emerge as an early rotation guy or an early starter. We don't know. It's somewhat likely when you get this level of player that everybody's after who has this kind of pedigree. One of these guys could emerge. Who's going to emerge? Who's that second quarterback? And I'll leave that to you guys. Who's going to be that second cornerback that's a reliable starter next to Tyreek Chappelle with the rest of this, damn elite secondary group, at least that makes up the interior side of the secondary, safety, and nickel? Who's that other corner? Y'all tell me. Now moving in to a bit of the black cloud hanging over the program right now, and that's the linebacker group. Of course, Santucci, no longer part of the staff. We move on. I think the starters here are solid. I think Edge Cooper is obviously a solid starter. Another one of those guys who I think still has a leap in the chamber. And then Chris Russell coming off of a career year. Now, what we want to see from Chris Russell is for his high points last year to become the baseline for this year. because he had some high highs, but he's still not a perfect player. We're still very happy with the progress we saw from him. Definitely something to build on. I mean, it's his last chance to go make his money. Him and Cooper, it's a formidable duo. I think the X factor of this position group, maybe of this defense, and it's a lot of pressure to put on one guy. I know he's watching this video. Martrell Harris. What's his development? Where's his development at? What kind of player is he going to become? Because let's face it, I'm pretty sure we're losing Cooper and Russell this year. I don't think Russell has any eligibility left. I think Cooper is going to be good enough to go pro after this year, especially if he has the kind of year we're hoping for. Martrell Harris is going to have to be that guy that's next up in this position group. And he has to be that guy that becomes a rotational, reliable player this year, because you're going to have to spell these guys here and there. And Martrell Harris is going to have to take a majority of those spell reps from the starters. So I think he is such a crucial X factor for this defense next year, because how do those gaps get filled in when one of those two linebackers has to take a breath and Martrell's the one in there? Had some good moments later in the year, didn't burn his red shirt, didn't play that much last year. Where's his development at? He's going to be one of the main things I'll be watching early in the year and, of course, coming up in spring. Now, I think you do need a second linebacker to make a name for himself. They've gotten a couple of guys in the portal, but then, of course, you have the 3 true freshmen we talked about on the signing day video. Which one's going to emerge as a guy that can get a few plays a game? Is it going to be one of the transfers? Maybe. Is it going to be one of the true freshmen? I don't know. I don't know who it's going to be. That's one of the big glaring question marks on this team in this program, is who can be that other linebacker? Because, I mean, it's fine right now if everybody stays healthy all year. That usually doesn't happen. So really need someone to step up here and really need Martrell Harris to pan out. But that covers this depth chart, guys. What are y'all excited about? How do y'all feel about this team? I'm optimistic, as I've said, uncomfortably so. I just cannot wait to watch this offense and this D-line and this secondary swarming around, specifically the safeties. There's a lot to love about this team. So I guess I'll just highlight the main points of attention you're going to want to draw your eyes to come spring. But that's the running back rotation. Who's that second corner that isn't Tyreek Chappelle? Where is Martrell Harris at in his development? Those are my big question marks on this team. Aside from that, if the team stays healthy, if the coaching staff clicks with this team, because there's some turnover, there's some new coaches in there, same overarching message, because obviously Jimbo's still there, but the pieces are there for this to be a playoff contender yet again. And I say yet again with a big grain of salt, because we know how that has gone the last 2 years. Pretty good in 2020, but the last 2 years, not so good. This is the most talented team I've seen at A&M. It's probably the most prestigious coaching staff I've seen in recent memory. But it's a lot of strong personalities, a lot of polarizing figures. How does this thing all pan out? How does it all pan out? So, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for being patient with me as I get through the sickness and take time and then finally make a video. I appreciate all of you. I'll see you in the next one. Gig 'em.